Hello everybody, welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast, and today we're going to be doing something we haven't done before on the podcast. We're going to be rounding up a match week of League One action. Today is Wednesday as of recording, but yesterday on Tuesday night we saw some amazing games of League One football, some intriguing results and some fascinating performances, and I wanted to delve into some of them in more detail. I've picked 4 games in particular in which I've researched, looked at the tactics behind the game, how both teams approached the game, the different players that stood out within those games as well, and what it means for these clubs going forward. And also, I've gone through every game and sort of highlighted different things to take from those games. I've also asked you as well on Instagram, at the Young Fan Podcast, I put out a story, ask if there's any specific talking points you wanted me to discuss on the podcast based on yesterday's games of football, and I've got your responses, and I'm going to be talking about them as well. So I've got you involved, and I'm also going to be talking about some specific games as well. Now, I have picked 4 games that almost random, not really random. I have picked the 4, in my opinion, games we can take most from, but pretty much every game yesterday we can take so much from as well. So I do apologise if I've missed some games and missed your team's game, for example. But if it's something you want to see more of, I can do it maybe on a Sunday after a weekend of football. On the Saturday, for example, I can do this on a Sunday, get more games in, and we can go through nearly every game. If that's something you want to see, then let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoy this sort of stuff, also let me know. What did you think of yesterday's games? Let me know of that as well. I'm responding to all of them as per usual. Also, leaving a like and subscribing is much appreciated. It helps the podcast, it helps the growth of the podcast as well, and it really does mean a lot. It's much appreciated. So if you enjoy this sort of thing, please consider doing that. That would be absolutely fantastic. Right, let's not mess about. Let's get straight into it. Starting off with Plymouth Argyle against Wycombe Wanderers. That's the first game I want to delve into. That's the first game I would like to discuss. So, without any, let's not really cut any corners here. The final score was Plymouth Argyle 0, Wycombe Wanderers 3. But there's more to take from it than just that. There's more to take of it than just the scoreline. You can look at it at face value. You can see that Wycombe looked like they quite comfortably won the game. But I want to look at it, like I said, in a little bit more detail and really see what we can get from this game of football. So I want to show you first of all this graph here. It's a strange little graph where the cursor is here. This is called the attack momentum graph. This website, by the way, is called SofaScore. It's where I get all my research and stats from. I definitely recommend checking them out. They really do go into detail in all the top leagues and pretty much nearly every league across the world. Not just football league, they do lots of other sports as well. But the football side of it is absolutely fascinating and something I use so often. But here is the momentum, the attack momentum graph. And you can see here, Plymouth are in green and Wycombe are in blue. And you can see, just looking at straight away from face value, without getting into too much detail on it, Plymouth really dominated the game going forward. Offensively, they were much better than Wycombe, really. They had more of that momentum. Now, I use that word better cleverly because better can be looked at in different ways. It doesn't mean you can have the most of those chances, the most momentum in attack. Actually, I'd probably change the word from better. They did have more of that attacking momentum, but were they better with it? And that's why I'm going to pose the question to you, but also answer it almost with the scoreline. You can see there how much of the ball and how much attacking and offensive and momentum that Plymouth had throughout the 90 minutes of football. They had spells, in both the first half and the second half, and they were very dominant in certain areas. But you can see there, looking at where the footballs are, that's where Wycombe scored their goals. You can see the spikes that Wycombe had were absolutely crucial when they got their goal. When they hit those spikes, when they had those opportunities, they took full advantage and they hit the back of the net. When they had those moments, when they had those spells and big spikes in the game, they were able to take their chances across the 90 minutes. And that is pivotal if you're going to win games of football in this league. You can have all the ball, you can have all the possession, you can have all the momentum, you can have the big chances, you can have all those different things, and the most touches, etc. But it's about what you do with it and how you can go from having, for example, those different variables in a football match, but making sure you're clinical and making sure you're taking those chances. And Wycombe were able to do that, and that is why they prevailed and won the game 3-0. I also want to highlight a specific player as well. This lad here, Anis Mehmeti. I'm going to bring him up in full screen here. He was crucial last night. He was massive for Wycombe in terms of why they were so successful. I want to scroll up as well, actually, so we get to see a little bit more of his stats. I don't want to There we go. Can we scroll up a little bit more? Let's just keep scrolling. So we can see him there in full screen. I think this player was pivotal last night, and I want to go into more detail as well. Not just because he got the SofaScore player rating of 9.1, the man of the match, the highest across the game, but also because of what he did with the ball, and also his personal heat map there as well. He got 2 goals. He got an assist. You can see on that heat map there as well. He had a sort of 3 main big areas in which he was most influential on the pitch, but you can see there, and the 2 that I want to highlight in particular is the one in the penalty area where he's getting those goals, and that creativity around the edge of the box there, around the penalty box. He had a lot of spells on that sort of right hand side as well. You can see him sort of drifting out wide, but also outside that penalty box in sort of the right corner of the penalty area. And a lot of the ball there as well, where he's doing most of his creative work as well, because he didn't just get 2 goals, he also got an assist. He was influential, and it was part of every goal that Wycombe scored last night. All 3 goals they scored, and that's massive, and that's a huge part of why they were so good. He only lost possession 16 times in the game. I say only, and you're probably thinking 16 is quite a lot for a player in an attacking position. If a defender loses possession 16 times, it's a worry. But for an attacking player who is there to take risks, to create chances, to cause problems, to cause an attacking threat, to lose possession 16 times is a very, very... Well, I mean, it proves he's taking risk, but there you can see with his 3 goal contributions, they're paying off, and that is something to really take into consideration, and he's done a fantastic job, and he's a huge reason why last night Wycombe was so good, other than the fact that Wycombe generally took their chances when they had that momentum, and that's something that they've definitely, if they can keep doing that, we know how Wycombe play, they play in a very specific way, but they can keep doing that, that's something to watch out for Wycombe going forward. I will look at the stats as well, and that's going to be something that can be really, really interesting. You can see there, Plymouth dominated possession, 66% possession. They had 27 total shots, less on target, which is something that Wycombe definitely did beat them at, which would probably be another factor to take into consideration there as well. You can see the big chances created. His big chances there, 3-1 towards Wycombe. They had the bigger chances. They had less shots, but they had the bigger chances. And that says, again, so much about how Wycombe approached the game and how Wycombe approached the game as well. It's not about how many you have. It's not about how much of the ball you have. It's about what you do with it, and that's what Wycombe did, and were able to better Plymouth, if you like, in that area across the game. Yes, it maybe didn't look like a 3-0 game of football, but when you take your chances and you're clinical, we've had it against us, Ipswich United, this season. I'm sure you, as a fan of your own club, has had it this season. It happens in probably every football match, and well, not every, but a lot of football matches across the footballing world, in a game where you probably don't feel like you've been reflected quite with that scoreline. But Wycombe were able to do that, and they took those chances, and that's definitely something they can take into consideration and take into the next game as a massive positive. For Plymouth, though, their next game's Wigan, so it's not going to be easy. Lost to Charlton last week, which was a bit of a disappointing result. Charlton are a massive up at the moment, obviously with the interim manager situation there as well. We'll come on to Charlton, because I believe that was one of the questions that I got asked in the Instagram sort of discussion point, was the Charlton manager situation, and I will want to sort of briefly touch on that. But I mean, they got beaten by Charlton last week. They've now been beaten 3-0 at home by Wycombe this week. Wigan's not going to be an easy game. Wigan are sort of finding maybe a little bit of a patchy position at the moment, but a massive game, and it sets up a huge game at the weekend against Wigan, so I look forward to that. But yeah, interesting game, so much to take from it. But in that one, Plymouth versus Wycombe, that was a really interesting game, a fascinating encounter in which Wycombe won 3-0. So, in the next game then, let's hop over to Oxford United against Fleetwood Town then. Probably one of the weirdest build-up to a football match that Oxford United, or probably most teams in the footballing world, will have to encounter for a while. Here it is on SofaScore here. Let's bring it up for everyone to see in full screen. Bosh, here we go. And you can see, ultimately, by looking at the momentum graph there, straight away, you can see that Oxford United definitely did have a lot of the ball and were much more competent, I'd say, going forward, and looked very, very good compared to Fleetwood. But like I said, probably one of the strangest build-up. 14 players out, either injured, out because of close contact due to the virus, or out with COVID-19 itself. It was a strange build-up to a football match, and one that probably, or hopefully, won't have to be replicated again, because it was absolutely bizarre. So bizarre. And like I said, a very, very strange way, a very, very strange build-up to a football game, and meant that we had to bring in and had to change so much. We had a back line, you can see there, of probably 3 players, that aren't really, well, two players that definitely aren't in our, I'd say, best back four, and one of our right back, Sam Long, playing a job at centre back. Defensively, and you can see in goal there, Connell Truman, he's an emergency goalkeeper brought on the day of the game yesterday on loan from Birmingham City. There were some crazy moments from last night, and to actually even play the game against Fleetwood was a massive thing. To come away with 3 points with it is something completely different, and a fantastic result. Credit to Carl Robinson, credit to the players. They absolutely embraced what was a very, very difficult moment and a difficult time as a football club. They did a fantastic job, and that's a huge positive for Oxford United. I'm so proud of them, and they did a fantastic job. For Fleetwood and Oxford, in terms of looking at it from the game perspective, you look at this momentum graph again, you could see, like I've already mentioned, Oxford were very, very good. In that first 20 minutes, we were fantastic. First 20-25 minutes, when we scored 2 goals here as well, you can see Oxford are in the green, Fleetwood in the blue. You can see we scored 2 goals very, very early on in the game. A header, a set piece, which is something that we spoke about on the XG video a few weeks ago, how Oxford United down to XG from set pieces and set plays haven't been very, very good at all. We haven't taken advantage of those. We scored a first set piece goal of the season last night. Well, actually, we have before, but directly from a header. The one we scored a week ago, or 2 weeks ago now, was a corner and then a header back across goal, and then an overhead kick, and then a head in the back of the net from Steve Sedlin. This one was a direct corner into the penalty area and a header, which we haven't done this season. So it's fantastic that we sort of got off the mark with that. Like I said, the first 20-25 minutes was so dominant. We took advantage of that. We scored 2 early goals. It was fantastic. They did get one back before half time, but in the second half again, like I said, Fleetwood did have their patch. You can see that they had their patches in the game, but generally Oxford were dominant in aspects and mainly dominant across the game. They took advantage of that. And Fleetwood, let's be honest, they didn't look great last night. I watched the second half and the last actual 15 minutes of the first. I was away actually for the first bit. I was able to catch the rest of the game. I didn't actually see the first 2 goals. I have watched those goals back, but I didn't see the end of the game. I didn't see the start of the game, so I only saw sort of the last, like I said, 10 minutes of the second half, 10 minutes of the first half, and the whole of the second half. But I did see some massive positives from that. But I'm going to be honest, the biggest spells for Oxford United were in that early parts of the game. I didn't see that, but I know people that did go to that game said that we were fantastic. Fleetwood did not look organised early on. They didn't look like they get a grip on the game, and they started very, very poorly. Since then, Simon Grayson, their manager, has actually lost his job. He's been sacked as Fleetwood head coach, and he actually said in his post-match interview, we did start poorly. And I can tell you for a fact, Fleetwood fans, you did start poorly. It was not a good way to start a game of football. You allowed Oxford straight into it, conceding 2 goals early on. It's an absolute lesson to be learnt from Fleetwood, and unfortunately for Simon Grayson, he's now lost his job, and he's no longer Fleetwood manager. So they weren't in great form at all. They 8 games without a win, 7 of those were defeats. They've, I believe, lost 5 on the bounce. 3 points adrift to the relegation zone. They're sitting in 22nd in the league. It's not looking great for him. It's not looking great for Fleetwood. I mean, it doesn't look great for him anyway. He's lost his job. It doesn't look great for Fleetwood at all. They need to find a manager really, really quickly, and hopefully they can. Hopefully they can and get that situation sorted as quickly as possible. That's what they'll be hoping for, I'm sure. So let's move on then to the next one. The next one we're going to be talking about is Shrewsbury against Sunderland, a 1-1 draw. Let's bring that game up here. This is sort of like a 4 match reactions in one. It's very, very interesting. But like I said, if you enjoy this, please make sure you show that support, and we'll bring it back as well. Now, for Sunderland, they were a bit of a patchy run until the weekend when they won against Ipswich 2-0 until that point. But last night they played against the Shrewsbury Town side that, as it stands at the moment, are still in the relegation zone and were in the relegation zone before last night. But a massive result for Shrewsbury in the grand scheme of things. 1-1. I know they're playing against Sunderland, but at home. But 1-1 against a massive Sunderland side that took massive points against Ipswich at the weekend. They're going to certainly take that. They also played the second half with 10 men, which was absolutely fantastic. They hung on. This momentum map is definitely something to take a look at. You could see where maybe that man got sent off in the game. I think you can. Just there, the red card just before half-time. But in that first half, Shrewsbury had moments in the game. And actually, the goals from either club and either side actually came when they probably had the least momentum. You can see that in that first half, it was pretty much, Sunderland did have their big spells, but generally Shrewsbury had more spells than Sunderland in that first half. Sunderland got their goal. In the second half, it was definitely all Sunderland. You can see they were going at Shrewsbury, especially when they're down to 10 men, and Shrewsbury got their goal. So it was certainly an interesting game, a massive result for Shrewsbury Town. They played, like I said, the second half with 10 men just before half-time. Getting a red card was quite a worrying place to be, but they adapted it. They did very, very well in this scenario, and they prevailed, like I said, with a great point against Sunderland. Let's look at that 70%. So that second half, that 73% possession from Sunderland in the game, especially here in the second half. 73% possession in that second half. It was a dominant performance from Sunderland in the second half. But they couldn't break the deadlock. They couldn't get that equalising. So they couldn't get that winning goal. They actually conceded in the second half as well. They had 13 total shots in that second half. They had 3 big chances in that second half as well. They had moments in the game. They had very, very significant and big moments in that second half, but they weren't able to take advantage. They weren't able to like I said, take those chances and get that winning goal, which is something that they needed to get. It would have been a big win for Sunderland away from home. It's not an easy place to go, Shrewsbury, but a point for them is massive and a really, really, really good result. Like I said, they had 3 big chances. They missed 3 big chances as well. Overall, they did dominate the game with 64% possession. They had more shots, they had double the total shots. They had 4 shots off target, 4 shots on target, 10 off target. A little bit, again, they had 20 shots there, but only 4 on target. Doesn't look great, does it, from a Sunderland perspective there as well? But generally, like I said, a fantastic result for Shrewsbury. I want to highlight this man here. I want to highlight Alex Pritchard, who got the goal for Sunderland as well. You can see his heat map. He was playing sort of as a... Well, he was playing behind the striker in terms of formation, but he's definitely drifting on that left-hand side. He got the man of the match, 86% pass accuracy, 3 key passes as well in the game. He also, like I said, drifted on that left-hand side as well, sort of creating those different chances out wide. Like I said, 64 touching the game, which I believe was the highest amount of players to touch the ball. Like I said, a really good pass accuracy, 3 key passes in the game as well. Very, very impressive. 1 big chance created in that match. A very, very good performance from Alex Pritchard. But very, very impressive. I want to look at those defensive stats as well for Shrewsbury here as well. They absolutely cleared the floor defensively. They had 23 tackles, 12 interceptions, 24 clearances, 57 duels won, 20 aerial duels won as well, all higher than Sunderland's defensive stats. They hung on, but they got a point, and they probably deserved it when you think about how well they defended. But yeah, that game finished 1-1. Really, really interesting, that one. Sunderland going to be probably going to be kicking themselves slightly. They couldn't get the 3 points, but for Shrewsbury, a fantastic, fantastic result. And finally, the last game that we've sort of broken into some serious detail is Cambridge against Wigan. Let's bring that game up for everyone to see. It finished 2-2 at Cambridge United. But I was very, very impressed with it. Very, very impressed. Like I said, Wigan are in a really nice position in the table. They're 4th in the league with a game in hand. They can really climb and climb to the top of the table with that game in hand they have. But this result here really was quite interesting. I've got to be honest, it was. And this momentum graph is going to look absolutely mind-blowing compared to the ones we've already seen as well. Straight away, looking at that graph, it was all Wigan in the game. You can see that Wigan are in the blue, Cambridge are in the green, but you can see there that Cambridge had some big spikes in the game, and when they had those spikes, they scored the goal, which is very, very impressive. But generally, Wigan was so dominant going forward. Offensively, they're phenomenal, and they dominated that game of football. You can see how many chances and how much of that attacking momentum they had during the game. They were fantastic, and they went 2-0 down before half-time, and just after half-time, they doubled that defeat, or doubled that deficit, and they went 2-0 down. They did clear it back in the end in the last sort of 5 minutes of the game. Will Keane and Callum Lang got the goals in the end. But you can see there they really could have gone ahead. They really could have scored in so many moments across the game. But Cambridge United were clinical and took those chances. It proves, similar to that Wycombe game, you get those spikes, you get those chances and you take them. This game and these games of football can really go either way. And we saw that so often. And we have seen that so often across League One this season. Cambridge had minor spells in the game and took advantage of those, scoring just before before half time and under that first half, into that first 5 minutes of the second half. From the second goal onwards, Wigan were attacked brilliantly, and in the last 10 minutes got what they deserved. That's the notes I made. I think that sort of sums it up quite well. Look at those stats. Wigan beat Cambridge. Wigan really could have beat Cambridge, but they beat them in so many areas. You can see there. Look at that. More possession, more total shots, more shots on target, more shots off target, more block shots, more corners, more fouls, not so much of a positive, more big chances missed, more shots inside, outside the box. They dominated across the field when it comes to stats, but ultimately it was Cambridge United that went 2-0 up and were able to take a point from it. A little bit disappointing, maybe they probably hoped they could have get something a little bit more from the game, but ultimately a result before the game of 2-2, you definitely take that probably from a Cambridge fan. Maybe being 2-0 up, your thoughts on that might change slightly. But generally, however you look at it, a really, really fascinating game to break down. John Ironside as well. I want to highlight this man. John Ironside, the number 9 for Cambridge United. Absolutely fantastic performance last night. 8.3 serve score rate. You can see his heat map. They dropped a little bit deeper for the ball. 1 goal and 1 assist. He was contributing in both of those goals with 1 shot on target, 1 shot off target as well. 41 touches as well. 1 key pass in the game. He was fantastic last night. John Ironside, a massive part of Cambridge United's firepower last night. Max Power did very, very well in the midfield for Wigan as well. Had a lot of football at right back this season, but playing in midfield, he did a very, very good job. You can see his heat map there all over the pitch, pulling the strings for Wigan, against Cambridge last night. 7.8 service score rating, 1 key pass, and also a big chance created as well. 81% pass accuracy, not a bad pass accuracy whatsoever. But very, very impressive game, very, very interesting game to break down, and that makes up all the games that I'm going to speak about. But I want to mention the other games that I haven't yet spoken about, because, like I said, I don't want to be going on every game really at the moment, because I want to see if you enjoy it. Also, don't be here for hours and hours, because it sort of loses that, I guess, retention. I want you to be involved as you can. But before we talk about the other moments I'm going from the game, I'm going to look over here on Instagram where you can get involved. And if you want to see this more often, I will do this more often. And I'll be asking you what you want me to say in sort of specific talking points based on the football we've seen. So Jake Smith says Oxford United. I've spoken about Oxford against Fleetwood. I spoke about that situation as well. Matthew says Bolton on the rise. Plymouth finally slip up. Oxford winning the best circumstances. And the Charlton manager. Matthew has sorted me out with some great talking points there. Yeah, I haven't individually mentioned Bolton, but they won against Doncaster 3-0 comfortably. They had sort of a bit of a dodgy patch, but generally now looking like they're picking some results up and look quite good again. Like I said, they started the season very, very well. They went on a bit of a dodgy patch and a dodgy run. They are now getting some results back again as well, and they are climbing up. I believe they're 11th in the table as well. So Bolton again are a team to watch out for. Like I said, Plymouth are now or have now slipped up. Like I said, we've already mentioned why that maybe is. They haven't got an easy game next against Wigan as well, hopefully sort that out. And also Oxford winning in the best circumstances. We've already spoken about that. What some strange circumstances, but a fantastic result. Full credit to Oxford United players and staff. The ones that haven't got COVID, and the ones that have, obviously we wish them the best and the speediest of recoveries, of course. Health before football. Is obviously something that has to be taken, and definitely is the message we should be sending. And the Charlton manager, definitely said I'd mentioned that. Someone else mentioned that as well, I believe. Someone else did mention the Charlton manager situation. And I mean, at the moment, it looks like it's going to go to the caretaker manager. I believe is it Johnnie Jackson, the name of the man at Cambridge United and Charlton United, Charlton Athletic, Charlton United. I'm getting all my C's mixed up. At Charlton Athletic, and he's done an absolutely fantastic job since he came in. Of course, he originally came in as an interim manager. But he's done an absolutely phenomenal job. He's come in, he's got results now, and I think he's probably going to be given that full job. He might, as of this going out, he might have already been given that full job and the main gig. They drew against Morecambe 2-2 last night, but actually they won against Plymouth 2-0. They beat Burton 1-0. They beaten in the FA Cup Harvard and Waterville 4-0. They beat Sunderland 1-0 away from home. They smashed Doncaster. They drew against Rotherham. They've done some fantastic stuff since the new manager's come in. Or should I say the caretaker manager's come in. He's done a great job. Johnnie Jackson, and I think he probably will be given that sort of full-time job. He thoroughly deserves it. I think he's done a fantastic job, I think he deserves the job. Harvey says Truman, of course, the emergency goalkeeper that came in, didn't have too much to do, but quite a strange situation for an emergency goalkeeper to come in. He didn't know many of the players' names, apparently, but he came in and he was part of a fantastic Oxford United side that won last night. Shrewsbury versus Sunderland, Paul G said, and of course I've spoken about that. And he also said Wycombe versus Plymouth, another team that I've spoken about, another game show that I've spoken about as well. The last thing to mention as well would be talking about Rotherham beating Ipswich. Rotherham now top of the table. They're looking very, very good. Portsmouth brushed Lincoln aside 3-0. Not a great result for Micheal Appleton's men at all. Great position for them to be in now, not really building up momentum. Now building up momentum, Portsmouth turning those draws into wins, which is really, really good. Last 5 games, they've won 4 of them and drawn the other one as well. Portsmouth now climbing up the league table, building that momentum. Like I said, they had a few draws here and there. They're now turning those into wins and done a fantastic job of that. Sheffield Wednesday, exactly the same. Had a few draws. They're now turning those results into wins. They now move into the playoff places. They scored twice late on to win a great 3 points against MK Dons. Of course, are knocking on those playoff doors. Sheffield Wednesday now coming in and doing a fantastic job and now in those positions as well. They're climbing into the League One playoff places, and they are really now turning on the heat. It's making it a really, really interesting League One campaign. I cannot wait for it to continue and for more and more amazing and incredible moments in this campaign that we've already seen. I can't wait to see even more as well. If this is something you want to see more and more often, please make sure you leave it in the comments down below. Leave a like and subscribe, like I said, if you enjoyed it. I've been Jack. This has been the Young Fan Podcast. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you all very, very soon.